Hello, everybody. It's Walter, your favorite historian, educator, professor, and social studies extraordinaire, here today to teach you about President Harry Truman's 1945 National Health Insurance Proposal. To many, if not most Americans, ladies and gentlemen, including myself, adequate, comprehensive health care and coverage thereto is not a privilege for the few, but it is a human right that belongs to everyone. Everyone needs adequate health care. Everyone needs adequate coverage, okay? Sadly, the United States of America remains the only first world industrialized nation that still lacks universal health insurance for all of its citizens, and that is disgraceful, to say the very least. While the Affordable Care Act, which was enacted under President Barack Obama, is a noble step forward in expanding access to health insurance, it still falls considerably short in guaranteeing comprehensive access to health care for all and preventing individuals from going bankrupt with medical bills. Yes, people still go bankrupt because of medical bills, and that should not be the case in the richest nation in the world. All right? So we all know that the struggle for universal health insurance in the United States of America is nothing new. Okay? And neither is, the struggle over why it's good and why it's bad. All right. There are passionate arguments on both sides of the equation. All right. This is not a new subject. All right. And the debate over it goes back more than a century now. All right. Which takes us to President Harry Truman first. All right. On November 19th, 1945, President Harry Truman became the very first American president to propose a comprehensive universal health insurance law, which would cover all Americans regardless of their age or income level, ladies and gentlemen. This was some 33 years after former president and 1912 progressive presidential candidate Theodore Roosevelt, who was initially a Republican, as we know, first backed the idea in his 1912 presidential platform. That said, Truman called for a national health insurance plan that would be run by the federal government. All right? It would be open to all Americans, yet remain fully optional. All right? Participants would pay monthly fees via payroll tax into the plan, which would in turn cover the cost of any and all medical expenses that arose due to medical need. The federal government would pay the cost for services given by any doctor who participated in the plan. Lastly, the insurance plan would pay a cash balance to the policyholder to replace lost wages due to illness and or injury. President Truman's motivation came in large part to protect America's largest class of citizens, the middle class, all right? As the rich can afford any type of medical treatment, and the poor could rely on charities for their help, the middle class was essentially the group that was SOL, all right, as it remains to this very day, all right? And Truman fought to close that gap out, ladies and gentlemen, and that is what you would expect, from a president who, of course, grew up under very modest circumstances. Then, as politicians do now, he faced serious opposition from the American public, Congress, and of course, drum roll please, the medical industry. All right. So first, Truman's plan came under attack from Congress itself. All right. The Republicans, the opposition at the time, feared that it would lead to an overall government takeover of the healthcare industry. They called it socialized medicine. All right. Keeping context in mind, late 1940s, early 1950s, we are in the very beginning of the Cold War. And some felt that it was a de facto communist takeover of the healthcare industry, which would be a slippery slope to communist style takeover of other traditionally private industries here in the U.S. Senator Robert Taft of Ohio declared that the plan was socialism. And it was, in his opinion, the most socialistic measure that this Congress had ever had before it. Taft suggested that compulsory health insurance, like the Full Unemployment Act, came right out of the Soviet Constitution, and he walked out of the hearings. All right. Next, President Truman's plan came under attack from many segments of the population the general population, you, I, the American people, because they feared a general increase in taxes to pay for this national health insurance plan. A general increase in taxes to pay for defense, as well as infrastructure, both of which are equally necessary, doesn't seem to get on people's nerves. Why is healthcare such a problem? We all need it. Even if you're 21 years old, eventually you're going to need healthcare. So that argument is bogus, if you ask me. Health insurance is just as much, if not more important than infrastructure and defense. All right. A sick population isn't going to do you any good. All right. A strong, healthy population is this nation's greatest asset. All right. But they didn't see it that way. Okay. So lastly, the organized medical industry, the American Medical Association, declared war in full force on Truman's bill. Their opposition came from the fact that the plan seemingly made doctors slaves that would lose their autonomy to the federal government. This was in spite of the fact that Truman's proposal allowed doctors to be paid any way they wished. Okay? The American Dental Association and the National Physicians Committee also rose in opposition. One such telegram from the Physicians Committee stated that, shall the independent professional status of physicians, dentists, nurses, and medical technicians be maintained, or will you become a servant of the government agency, taking orders from a departmental bureaucrat? Scare tactics 101. So though President Truman emphasized that his proposal would not mirror the NHS or National Health Service in Great Britain, it was of no help. All right. In the congressional elections of 1946, Republicans took control of America's legislative branch. The Republicans had no interest, obviously, then as now, in enacting national health insurance. They viewed it as a broader socialist scheme on the part of Truman and the Democrats to take over private industry in America completely. All right. The president responded by pumping more attention and energy into his health care plan. When Truman was returned to the presidency in 1948, the American Medical Association, fearing that all hope might be lost, assessed an extra $25 to each member to resist national health insurance, having spent $1.5 million alone in 1945 to oppose it when Truman first introduced the idea. Okay? For the record, that was the most expensive lobbying effort in American history up to that point. The American Medical Association put out a very effective pamphlet which read, "Would socialized medicine lead to socialization of other phases of life? Lenin thought so. He declared socialized medicine is the keystone to the arc of the socialist state." Indeed, so effective was the pamphlet in linking national health insurance with socialism that by the time the Korean War commenced in 1950, the idea had become all but improbable. The plan would suffer an unjust and untimely death in a congressional committee, never to see the light of day with a floor vote. Okay? No compromises were to be reached. And instead of Truman's national health insurance plan, the United States would evolve into the private employer-based health insurance system that still exists to this very day. President Truman never got over his anger at the AMA, and in writing to a congressman in regards to them, he stated, "At the proper time, we will take the starch out of them," and he meant it. So the defeat of President Truman's proposal would in subsequent years lead advocates for national health insurance to move to a more palatable idea of federal insurance for the elderly and low income. Those efforts bore fruit with the creation of Medicare and Medicaid in 1965 in the United States. All right. So in conclusion, President Truman's national health insurance proposal was indeed landmark and revolutionary. All right. It was a reflection of a chief executive who truly had the desire to entirely bridge the gross inequalities in the American healthcare system that still exists to this very day. And had it passed, folks, would have brought us truly closer to a more perfect union. All right. Were I alive in 1945, I would have fully supported this. All right. This was a remarkably wonderful plan, and I don't see one flaw in it. And the only thing I can ask, folks, is how could anybody not get behind it? You tell me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned a thing or two. I will talk to you at the next video. Take care of yourselves and stay safe out there. Peace. Professor out.